Luxury isn't the status symbol it used to be. For decades, it was simple. The right car, the right watch, the right label stitched somewhere visible. That was the language of success, and everyone spoke it fluently. But something has shifted. Walk into any room today, and the person with the loudest signals isn't necessarily the one who holds the most power. In fact, it's often the opposite. The old markers have become common, accessible, easy to imitate. And when everyone can buy the symbol stops meaning anything. So a quieter question emerges. If luxury no longer proves anything, what does? Let's explore what has quietly taken its place. Status, it turns out, is becoming invisible. There was a time when a few purchases could summarize a person's entire position in life. A car in the driveway, a brand on the wrist, a certain address. But those days are fading. Financing made luxury accessible. Social media made it performable. Almost anyone can rent the appearance of success for an afternoon and a good camera angle. So the wealthy, the influential, the genuinely secure started looking elsewhere for their signals. Not louder, quieter. Not visible to everyone, visible only to those who know what they're looking at. This is the beginning of what we might call invisible status, a form of value that can't be photographed and can't be borrowed for a weekend. It shows up in how someone carries themselves, not in what they're wearing while they do it. Which brings us to the next shift. Calm has become more valuable than display. Notice the people in any room who actually hold influence. They rarely speak the most. Here's the strange part. The ones with the least to prove are usually the quietest people in the building. At dinner, one person keeps checking who's watching. The other forgets there is an audience. That's the entire difference in a single image. Real influence looks almost boring from the outside. Measured tone, unhurried pace, a kind of ease that can't be rehearsed. Because calm isn't something you can fake for very long. Eventually, pressure reveals who was actually relaxed and who was just holding it together. And that leads us somewhere interesting. Attention is becoming the new currency. Think about how many things are competing for your focus right now, at this very moment. Notifications, opinions, emergencies that aren't really emergencies. Everyone wants a piece of your attention, and most people give it away instantly, almost reflexively. But some people don't. They let the message sit for an hour. They finish their thought before checking their phone. They choose, deliberately, what deserves a response and what doesn't. That restraint is starting to read as rare, maybe even as valuable, because attention has quietly become one of the scarcest resources a person can protect. Guarding it isn't rudeness, it's discipline. And discipline, more and more, is starting to look like status. At this point, the pattern becomes difficult to ignore. None of these signals can be bought at a store. None of them arrive overnight. And that's exactly why they've started to matter more than the things that can. Let's keep going. Taste is replacing price. There's a specific kind of confidence in choosing less and choosing it well. A quiet room designed with intention. A wardrobe with no visible logos, just clean lines and fabric that was clearly chosen, not just afforded. This isn't about spending less. Often it costs more. But the value isn't in the price tag. It's in the restraint behind the decision. Anyone can buy something expensive. Fewer people know when to stop adding, when simplicity says more than abundance ever could. One arrives wearing success. The other walks in carrying it. That kind of taste can't be rushed. It's built slowly, through attention and repetition, and it's usually only recognized by people who've developed the same instinct. Which is exactly the point. It's not for everyone to notice. It's for the right people to notice. Most people get this completely wrong, though. They assume being hard to impress means being cold or distant. It's the opposite. Being hard to impress is becoming its own kind of luxury. The person who has seen enough, tasted enough, traveled enough, isn't jaded. They're simply calibrated. They know the difference between something rare and something merely expensive. They don't gasp at the yacht. They ask who built it and why. That quiet discernment, the refusal to be dazzled by surface, has become a status signal all its own, because it can only be earned through genuine exposure, never faked through enthusiasm. Then there's time, maybe the most honest signal of all. Time is becoming the ultimate luxury. Look at someone's calendar, not their closet, and you'll learn far more about their actual position in life. Is it packed, reactive, constantly rearranged around other people's demands? Or is there space in it? Room to think. Room to pause before answering. The ability to say no without over-explaining, without guilt, is one of the clearest indicators of freedom that exists. Busyness used to be a badge of importance. Now, it often reads the opposite way, like a lack of control rather than a sign of success. The people who seem to have real control over their lives aren't rushing through them. They're moving at a pace they chose. And that pace speaks louder than almost anything they could wear. Which brings us somewhere a little deeper. Emotional stability is becoming a social advantage. We're gradually moving from what people display to who people actually are underneath it. This sounds backwards until you notice one thing. The people who seem the most powerful are often the ones who need the least from the room. Think about the people who stay composed when things go wrong, who don't need to raise their voice to be taken seriously, who don't chase approval every time they make a decision. There's something magnetic about that steadiness, especially in a world that so often rewards overreaction. People are drawn to stability almost instinctively because it suggests safety, predictability. A person who won't crumble under normal pressure. Reacting instantly to every frustration doesn't communicate power. It communicates a lack of control. Staying grounded, especially when it would be easy not to, has quietly become one of the rarest qualities a person can carry. And that quality points directly to something larger. The highest form of status is quiet confidence, not the version that needs to win every conversation, not the one constantly proving a point, the version that simply doesn't feel the need to convince anyone of anything. People who possess this rarely raise their voice to be believed. They don't compete for the last word. They're comfortable being wrong occasionally because their sense of self was never dependent on being right. That kind of confidence is almost impossible to imitate convincingly because it isn't a performance. It's an internal state that simply leaks outward. You can sense it within seconds of meeting someone like this. There's no urgency, no need to sell you on anything, just a presence. And presence, more than anything on a wrist or in a driveway, is what people are actually responding to. Which leads to the thread connecting everything we've covered. Luxury was never really about expensive things. It was about owning something few people could. A watch only mattered because most people couldn't afford one. A view only mattered because most people couldn't buy the land beneath it. Once those objects became easy to imitate, financed, replicated, staged for a photo, scarcity had to move somewhere else. It didn't disappear. It relocated. Today, it lives inside behavior. Calm can't be bought in a store. Taste can't be rushed into existence overnight. Time can't be manufactured, only protected. Emotional stability can't be borrowed for an evening to impress someone. Every one of these signals shares the same quiet requirement. They demand patience. They demand character. They demand a kind of self-control that simply can't be financed. Scarcity was always the real source of value, not the object itself. When something becomes easy to fake, it stops meaning anything. When something can't be faked at all, it becomes the most valuable signal there is. So maybe luxury didn't disappear? Maybe it just moved inward. The rarest signal today isn't something you can purchase. It's something you either have or you don't. External luxury loses its meaning the moment it becomes common, replicated by anyone with enough credit and enough patience to wait for delivery. But an unshakable sense of calm, a genuine command of your own time, a stillness that doesn't ask for permission, those can't be shipped overnight. Perhaps the people who appear the wealthiest today aren't displaying more. They're simply needing less. Less approval, less urgency, less noise. In every generation, status follows scarcity. Today, scarcity no longer lives in objects. It lives in character. So here's something worth sitting with. Which of these signals do you notice most in the people around you, and which one do you think you're quietly building in yourself? Let me know in the comments.